a world surrounded by a wall. This wall protects and nurtures the land and is seen as a divine guardian. In this world, there are two countries divided. One honors wisdom as the empire, and the other honors bravery as the republic. One fateful day, the supreme fortune teller of the republic, Subai, saw an omen, the sign of the phoenix falling near the border of the empire. Subai instructed Commander Ren to ask the king for permission to capture that location. However, General Kai took the initiative to seize it, for receiving orders, knowing the sign of the phoenix must be very valuable. Kai arrived just in time as the treasure fell. Opening it, he discovered many rings whose functions would become clear later. Just as he was about to take them back, people from the empire arrived to steal the treasure. Subai wasn't worried, because he believed Kai could handle it. Kai called for someone to retrieve one of the rings from the pile. These rings could provide the wearer with a set of armor. While others planned to fight 4 against 1, Kai believed that the robots represented each person's soul, and that these monochrome figures wouldn't stand a chance against him. Kai threw them all into the air and finished them off in one move. Suddenly, another sign appeared nearby but fell into an area not under their control. Subai wanted Kai to return while he went to retrieve the second sign himself, taking responsibility if the king punished them. The sign fell into a remote village inhabited mostly by cowboys living in the high mountains year-round. The village was impoverished, relying on gathering and hunting, but animals were scarce. Subai and Ren went to the village where the sign had fallen. The villagers, believing it was a heavenly treasure, hoped for food inside. When a young man emerged from the sign, kicking the guy who was cooking, the villagers were astonished. The kids thought he was food and tried to bite him, while Subai was surprised to find a human inside the sign. That night, the villagers asked the young man his name, but he couldn't remember. All he recalled was coming from the other side of the wall. The villagers found this unbelievable, as their world was entirely enclosed by the wall. Despite their skepticism, the young man turned his back on them, heading toward the wall to cross it. For the first time, Subai considered the possibility of life outside the wall, as their knowledge had always been limited to what the wall allowed, attributing the unexplained to its divine nature. Suddenly, a thief arrived searching for the heavenly treasure. The villagers pointed to the protagonist, but he didn't believe that a naked man could be the treasure. The protagonist tried to explain. The thief began destroying the village. The blue-haired girl, the village sheriff, retrieved her father's relic, a shape-shifting ring. She put it on and transformed, creating armor to protect herself. The protagonist was confused by this transformation. The village scholar explained that the ring connected the wearer with their ideals and beliefs, forming armor for battle. The blue-haired girl's belief allowed her to resist attacks. The thief still overpowered her. As his belief made him stronger, the more the enemy fled. The villagers urged the protagonist to help the blue-haired girl, as her armor's destruction meant her death. He ran to his iron box, searching for a ring. Confident in his strength, he put it on and transformed into a powerful robot. He fought the thief, luring him down the mountain. The thief's attacks couldn't harm the protagonist, whose body softened and reformed like slime. Despite not knowing his belief, the protagonist kept fighting until the thief's ring broke and he was forced to flee. Subai found him and marveled at how he had endured so long, as most people would be exhausted after just 1 or 2 hours. Subai asked about what lay outside the wall, but the protagonist couldn't remember. People believe everything is inside the wall, though few would believe him. Confused by Subai's explanation, Arrow struck him, causing Ren to rush in to attack. Subai stopped Ren, finding Arrow very interesting. He was willing to help Arrow leave the wall, but needed him to stay for a few days. The villagers were checking on the blue-haired girl, who wanted to find Arrow. Suddenly, Arrow was thrown back and found sleeping. Subai and Ren returned, and Ren wanted Subai to keep quiet about Arrow and the outside of the wall to avoid court. They met with Kai again, who asked about the second treasure. Subai said he would explain later. That morning, Arrow had integrated into the village. The children played with him, and the sheriff, known as Atli, gave him clothes made by a young tailor named Bit. Arrow praised the clothes, but Bit asked Arrow to fix his house. Arrow made a temporary house for Bit and promised to make it bigger if he had materials. The village hunter, Ela, who was suspicious of Arrow, took him hunting and showed him their small, poor village. They couldn't migrate due to the war between the two large countries. Ela and Bit both tried to drive him away, fearing that his presence would bring more danger. Bit only gave him some food, as that was all they could spare. Meanwhile, Subai forged the king's seal to explore secret places and uncover the truth about the world. He realized the thief who attacked the village was from the Empire. The thief reported his defeat, mentioning only a broken ring while remaining unharmed. The princess, a peace-loving person, wanted to know more to prevent bloodshed. She asked the Sirs to find Arrow. They contacted the president of the small country where the village was located, requesting them to hand over Arrow if possible. That evening, the village saw several animals brought back, presumably hunted by Arrow to repay them. Suddenly, soldiers arrived, demanding a search for Arrow. When he wasn't found, the president ordered the village to be wiped out. Soldiers began transforming and shooting, forcing Atli to battle to protect the village. Ela ran to Arrow's iron box to see if there were more rings. Atli was beaten, and Ela found another ring and transformed. But as soon as she landed, she fell into a hole. Bit tried to escape and found Arrow sleeping in the well. Arrow had gone there to stay cool because he had promised Subai he wouldn't leave. He transformed and fought the commander. Subai, now in the forbidden area, studied ancient texts. Ela heard a voice that helped her connect with her armor. Arrow defeated the commander, but the ring was broken, though the commander survived. Subai learned that Arrow was a guardian from outside the wall, and once he fully awoke and remembered everything, the world might be destroyed. Ela emerged from the hole and brought out a giant ship. The king of the Republic had distributed newly acquired rings to soldiers, all identical. The king asked Kai about the second treasure and instructed him to tell Subai to report as soon as possible. When Ela removed her leg from the ship, suddenly stopped and fell. Kai learned about the ship capable of destroying the world and warned Subai to be cautious, as the emperor was very intimidating. Subai promised to investigate thoroughly before reporting to the king. Village was now severely damaged and uninhabitable. Arrow wanted to use the ship to go outside the wall, but only Ela could operate it. As he fell asleep, Bit discussed something with the commander. When Arrow woke, he saw the villagers had turned against him and taken his transformation ring. They said that handing him and the ring over to the president would ensure their peace. That night, Atli forced Bit to release Arrow, who had saved their lives twice. Ela wanted Atli to put down her gun, as the army would only take him away, not execute. Arrow told Atli to leave him and face the situation, rather than flee and affect the village. The next day, Ela transformed into a robot to pilot the ship and transport all the villagers and Arrow to the president. Bit, feeling disliked by Atli, joined the army. When they met the president and handed over Arrow, he directed them through a mountain pass to a new settlement. Believing him completely, everyone boarded the ship. Bit, tricked into firing the cannons, buried the entire ship under earth and rocks. The president didn't want the ship exposed to the two countries and would be forced to hand it over, risking conflict. Bit realized he was deceived, stole the ring from the president, and threw it to Arrow. Arrow broke free and took Bit away. Ela, enlightened by Arrow, decided to fly the ship into the sky once more. The commander requested a ring to pursue them and clung to the ship. Arrow was about to join the fight when Atli battled again, tying up the enemy. The enemy shook violently and shot her in the mouth. She changed her belief, reversing the bullet back to him, allowing Arrow to defeat him. The village forced the president and the army to leave them alone, but he asked the entire village to leave the country. The village, now abandoned, would consider the ship their home. They planned to aim for the wall to see if Arrow was telling the truth. If it proved true, they would settle outside the wall. Subai reported back to the king, requesting to personally handle the ship and Arrow. Years ago, Kai and Subai, as children, had been sold by the village to the government. The children were thrown down a well like animals, which made Kai furious. He broke his handcuffs and aimed to overthrow the country. Both Subai and Kai dreamed of changing the country. Subai wanted to handle Arrow to achieve great merit, as it would help realize their dream. He didn't want Kai to follow, fearing others would accuse him of stealing Kai's merit. Both were determined to achieve their dream. Meanwhile, a group of mercenaries arrived at the neutral area between the two countries and attacked the Empire's plantation. Arrow's group was considering following the neutral path to the wall to avoid conflict with the two countries. Suddenly, soldiers from the Republic appeared and attacked them. They threw a ball and summoned Arrow's group to meet the king, who was determined to destroy the ship, leaving no chance for negotiation. As soon as he finished speaking, guns were fired. The doctor advised them to temporarily hide in the nearby merchant city. Atli would lead the way, Ela would pilot the ship, and Arrow would defend. Subai had sent the 4 mercenaries from earlier into battle. The 4 put on rings and used smoke to prevent the ship from flying. Subai had tried their method of countering flying ships and found it unexpectedly effective. The ship stopped, forcing Arrow and Atli to come down and fight. Subai and Ren greeted Arrow. Subai had previously helped him because he thought Arrow would be useful, but now the situation had changed. Arrow wanted to negotiate with Subai but failed, unsure whether Subai was a friend or foe. The 4 mercenaries told him that Subai had instructed them to crush him and introduce themselves clearly before the fight. They wanted Arrow to fight well to earn more money. Subai was testing Arrow's strength, aiming to gather information so he wouldn't go easy on him. On the Empire's side, they heard that the border was attacked but not invaded. They also had photos of the ship, leading them to suspect that the president was rebelling. Atli was pulled down by 1 mercenary, and Arrow was attacked by the remaining 3, who used wind, water, and fire. Ela couldn't stay on the ship forever and joined the fight. She was attacked by the water user. Arrow, criticized as incompetent and lucky, demonstrated his true strength by splitting into 4 bodies, making it impossible for them to trouble him. Subai explained that Arrow's ability came from not having a specific belief, making his power limitless and confirming the prophecy about the world's end. The Republic soldiers activated their armor simultaneously, but Subai pressed a button that broke all the rings. He then locked Ren in the car and approached Arrow to surrender, as he no longer wanted to serve the Republic and was interested in joining Arrow's group. He needed Ren and the soldiers to return and report his rebellion to the king. Ren refused, but the choice was return or die. Everyone went back, while Subai was still suspected and had guns pointed at him. The village asked Subai why the ship couldn't fly anymore. He explained that underground metal veins created a repulsive force that allowed the ship to float and fly. The substance sprayed earlier caused the repulsive force to disappear, but would wear off after an hour. The villagers, still distrustful due to previous deceptions, wanted Subai to prove himself as Arrow had done. Ren returned and informed Kai of Subai's betrayal, though he didn't know why. Subai was led to the ship's control room. 10 years ago, Subai and Kai were slaves sent with soldiers to hunt for the treasure from heaven. Subai calculated the angle of fall and led Kai to retrieve it. They were attacked by rebellious soldiers, and Kai handled them all. The Emperor and the king's close courtier arrived. Courier thought they were unworthy and demanded their execution, but Subai defended Kai, arguing that they deserved merit. King respected their feat and allowed them into the army. Subai now instructed the doctor on how to use the ship, explaining the control panel, lights, and navigation. Suddenly, Ela reported that an enemy had appeared, and Subai knew it was Kai. Kai activated his transformation ring and stopped the entire ship. Subai said Kai was as strong as 1,000 soldiers, but Kai's single move completely halted the ship. The ship shook as Kai rushed to deal with Ela and drag Subai out. Ela had to remove her bracelet to avoid losing her life, and Arrow decided to join the battle. He announced his alliance with Arrow, believing the Republic was a sinking ship and needing a new one. His dream had changed from Kai's. Arrow faced Kai, who attacked with a fire sword. Although Arrow wasn't hurt, Kai spun the sword and threw him away. Split into multiple bodies and attacked. Ayla ran to help Arrow. The village chief thought Subai and Arrow were to blame for dragging them into this situation. Even if they left, they would still be in trouble, as both countries viewed the battleship as a threat. The chief had a plan to help them escape and needed the doctor's assistance. Subai then went outside and asked everyone to remove their armor to talk. Arrow didn't expect Kai to be so strong and now had to trust Subai. Subai negotiated with Kai, who reprimanded him for betraying their promise. Kai showed a scar to remind Subai of the past when Kai received the transformation ring and was promoted to general, while Subai aimed to become the chief astrologer. They had both promised to change the country, and Kai had cut the scar to remember Subai's kindness. But Subai had healed, lost the scar, and no longer wanted to change the country, but the entire world. He chose Arrow despite Arrow being weaker than Kai because Arrow had more potential. Kai drew his sword to fight, but Bit pointed a gun at him. Kai turned around, knocked the gun away, and hit Bit painfully. Arrow returned to fight, using a smokescreen to transform. Kai wanted to fight, but Subai told the doctor to fire the cannon, which could reach the palace. It took a second shot for Kai to reluctantly return. Arrow thought Kai was Subai's best friend, but couldn't understand his wishes. Now, Kai saw Subai as his biggest enemy and vowed to never stop trying to defeat him. Subai still had the scar but only used it as a cover. He noted that the doctor had performed well earlier as they had only fired blank shots. The explosion was a setup by Subai in the capital, triggered at the right moment to drive Kai back. That night, the king learned that Kai had failed and would be disciplined. Ren no longer saw Subai as her master, so Kai took her in. The next morning, Ayla was tired after flying for 3 hours. Subai wanted to find a way for her to rest. Bit didn't trust him. Arrow allowed Subai to be Bit's master, and Subai used his intelligence to confuse Bit into giving up. He activated the ship's flying ability so Ayla could rest and asked the doctor to check on her. They found Ella was fine. The ship suddenly stopped. Subai had used Ella's residual energy to keep the ship floating without steering. The village chief wanted everyone to be quiet so Ella could rest. They toured the ship, which was spacious and modern, much better than their previous life, with superior weapons. Kai was being punished under heavy rocks, failing his mission. He saw this as a way to increase his strength and belief. The minister informed him that the emperor had gone to suppress the rebels, making the courtier the highest authority. Ren would be punished in 3 days but had freedom until then. Meanwhile, the ship stopped for food. Arrow's group planned a route through a self-governing area ruled by lords, expecting looser security. That afternoon, they were blocked by a robot, initially mistaken for someone as strong as Kai. Arrow rushed out to save them, discovering the robot was a teenage boy. Seeing he was hungry, they gave him food and took him home. The boy told his friends about the group's kindness and shared that they were treated poorly, used for experiments, and some turned into vegetables. 2 people from the group had stolen transformation rings and destroyed the research area to escape and save others. Kids wanted Arrow to help, and he allowed them to follow, but they wished to stay and protect their place. Suddenly, the Lord arrived to cause trouble. Arrow quickly dealt with him, chased him away, and gave the kids dinner. The blue-haired boy, pessimistic, hoped Arrow would stay to protect them. But Arrow turned away. He then went with Bit and Subai to the Lord's place near dawn. The 3, along with the Lord's people, returned to attack the kids' farm, seeking a map of the area to advance to the wall. The village chief suspected Arrow might betray them soon. Subai instructed the Lord to bring out the transformation rings. Children noticed this, and the blue-haired boy decided to fight, releasing smoke and punching Arrow. Subai used a light signal for the children to take the rings, enabling them to transform and overwhelm the Lord. Arrow stopped fighting, and Subai had memorized the map, tricking the Lord. He helped the children get weapons for self-defense and grow stronger to protect their home. The group continued their journey. Subai thought Arrow was clever for keeping quiet, but considered himself the one with the greatest merit for the plan. They noticed an army chasing them, but attacking near the wall was taboo. However, the Republic King might attack them regardless of the law, but they needed to bring down the wall quickly and leave. The kids reported that half the villagers and the village chief wanted to leave because they believed breaking down the wall would bring a curse. They had lived their whole lives inside and couldn't adapt to life outside, but the other half was ready to find a better place. The Lord reported back to the princess, who was angry about the experiments on the children. She cried and thought the Lord was too weak. Captain of the cavalry took one of his hands for making the princess cry. Meanwhile, Arrow's group reached the wall and prepared to break it. Arrow transformed into a robot and attacked, but it had no effect. Atli also tried but failed. Subai was unsure why, as no one had experimented on the wall before. Ren discovered a bomb Subai had planted in the palace. And the king's courtier learned of Subai's deception but didn't let the commander attack due to the neutrality treaty. Subai figured out how to use the ship's cannon and fired at the wall, but it still didn't work. Suddenly, the wall grew 2 tentacles and blew them back toward the Republic. The commander, a general of the Northern Republic, took advantage and ordered his troops to attack, aiming to bring Arrow and Subai back to the king. He pulled Arrow down from the ship to fight. Atli tried to resist but was unsuccessful. The general used gas to eliminate the repulsive force and prevent the ship from leaving. Ayla had to stay behind as Subai instructed. Atli returned to defend the ship. Just as the commander was about to use a special move, a robot flew in and stole his weapon. The robot was the female commander from the Empire, who was violating the territory by air. It wasn't prohibited. Subai revealed that the Empire had kept the flying robot's secret to circumvent the law. Subai redirected the exhaust to blow away the gas and eliminate the repulsive force, helping Arrow's group escape the Republic's jurisdiction and back to the neutral zone. The general, unable to advance, had to retreat. She then asked permission to invite the entire group to meet the princess as guests. Arrow refused, wanting to stay and deal with the wall, even though he knew that nothing he did would work. He understood that even the Empire, which valued knowledge, might have a way, but Arrow still declined. Commander decided to take the group to the princess and come back later to persuade Arrow. Meanwhile, Ren and Kai were also about to be free and vowed to make Subai taste bitterness. The commander informed the group about the Empire, a place ruled by 6 supreme beings. The princess at the top, peace-loving person ready to help with their plan to cross the wall. They arrived at the imperial capital, and since the Empire was not warlike, they had nothing to fear. Atli wanted to meet Arrow, but Ayla needed her by her side. At this time, Arrow was still actively punching the wall, with the doctor staying with him. The group had now reached the princess's palace. Email Commander led them to the dining table the princess had prepared. The villagers rushed in to eat, while Atli and Elsha were taken to the bathroom, where they met the princess. They had a brief diplomatic conversation, during which the princess offered accommodation for all, provided they lived peacefully together, hoping that the female captain would soon bring Arrow back. Meanwhile, Arrow was having dinner with the doctor, sharing some thoughts. Suddenly, female captain rushed in to capture him, but he transformed and fought back. He created a copy of himself as a foothold to jump up and grab her, demanding that she take him to the wall. She complied immediately. Subai had gone to find Bit to take him out for a while. Arrow was lifted high and encountered the protective entities at the top of the wall, which acted as seals, keeping it solid and preventing escape. Arrow stubbornly rushed forward but was attacked by the captain and kicked back down. Suddenly, a treasure chest was dropped, and Arrow grabbed it to fly away. Subai was taken to meet 2 of the princess's close advisors, both of whom were ready to grant Subai asylum if he revealed the Republic's secret. Compromised, but wanted to know how they had improved the female captain's flying ability, thinking that if he could apply it, they could mass-produce it. At this point, Arrow grabbed the treasure and was about to rush to the group when the female captain shot him down and captured him. She brought Arrow back to the palace where Bit discovered them. He had been observing, as Subai had instructed, and signaled Subai. Subai made an excuse to return to the ship while Bit ran to attack the guards. He was beaten back, but Subai managed to handle the situation himself. Arrow was taken by the female captain to an old scientist for research, with the intent of studying how he could control the armor without needing faith. Subai had anticipated this and devised a plan. Everything now depended on Bit's decision. If he shot the button correctly and released Arrow, they would live. If not, Arrow would die, though Subai would still survive due to his own value. Bit shot correctly, helping Arrow escape. Subai threw a smoke bomb to aid in the escape. The female captain rushed to attack again. Arrow took a sword from Subai, fought back, and knocked off her mask, revealing she was the princess, but not entirely. It seemed the princess had two different personalities. Subai was forced to throw another smoke bomb, allowing the three of them to continue running. He suspected the princess had multiple personality. Bit didn't allow Arrow to fight back because if the princess was even slightly injured, they would all be expelled. Subai had no time to come up with a plan, as the female captain personally came to stop the princess, intending to do her job herself so the princess could return. Arrow decided that running was the best option, so he transformed and took both Subai and Bit with him. The female captain had to report back and deploy a new plan. Atli now wanted to help Arrow, but was stopped by Ela. Although Ela had stabilized mentally, half of her mind was still confused by the sudden loss of her homeland and the subsequent wandering on a ship, only to end up being pushed into becoming the new village leader. If Atli left, Ela would be alone. Suddenly, they both noticed Arrow and the female captain fighting outside. Arrow was carrying Subai and Bit, so he couldn't split himself and had to enlarge his arm to grab her. Suddenly, he lost his fighting form, and the female captain also removed her ring to deal with him directly. But the doctor ran to stop her. She was his younger sister. The doctor had left the empire because he was the one who had caused the princess to develop multiple personalities. He had been searching for a way to cure the princess, and needed Subai's brain to do it. Arrow was someone who could defeat others' beliefs without killing them, but the doctor didn't know what purpose Bit served. However, the female captain stubbornly clung to her faith, and had to watch helplessly as Arrow's group escaped. The doctor took them to the underground sewer and decided to tell them everything. 5 years ago, the king died, leaving 40 heirs. The current princess was chosen. She loved to practice flying, so the female captain often used hang gliders to fly with her. One time, the doctor mistakenly shot at them, causing both to fall. He thought they were being attacked by birds. The princess developed multiple personalities from that incident, but only when near the doctor and her sister. His sister also began trying to harm him, so he left to find a cure for the princess.